A quiet but significant technological shift is underway in the heart of Central America. The United States has initiated a plan to remove and replace telecommunications equipment made by the Chinese tech giant Huawei from various sites across Panama. This move is not just about swapping out hardware. It represents a major front in the escalating global competition between Washington and Beijing. At its core, the US government views Huawei as a potential security risk, fearing that its technology could be used by the Chinese government for espionage or to disrupt critical infrastructure. This concern has now landed squarely in Panama, a nation of immense strategic importance due to its world-famous canal and its role as a regional logistics and financial hub. So, what exactly is Huawei? It is one of the world's largest telecommunications equipment manufacturers, based in Shenzhen, China. From the antennas on cell towers that connect your calls to the fiber optic cables that carry internet data, Huawei's technology forms the backbone of many modern communication networks. In Latin America, the company's presence is particularly vast and deeply integrated. For years, Huawei has offered advanced technology at competitive prices, making it an attractive partner for developing nations looking to modernize. Its regional headquarters have been in Panama City since 2011, and it operates a major distribution center in the Colon Free Trade Zone, highlighting its deep roots in the country and the broader region. Huawei's influence extends far beyond just Panama. Across Latin America, it has become a dominant force. A recent report estimated that roughly half of Brazil's 3G and 4G mobile networks run on Huawei equipment, and a staggering 80% of phone calls in Mexico pass through a Huawei device at some point. The company isn't just selling hardware, it's also a major player in cloud computing services, competing directly with American giants like Microsoft and Google. This deep market penetration is why the US sees its presence as such a critical issue, believing that this widespread reliance on Chinese technology creates vulnerabilities that could be exploited. This technological integration has made Huawei a cornerstone of the region's digital infrastructure development. The company has been instrumental in expanding internet access and mobile connectivity, often in areas where Western companies were slower or more expensive to operate. Its growth has been remarkable, with revenues in the Americas continuing to climb even amidst US pressure. For many Latin American governments and businesses, Huawei has been a key partner in their journey toward digital transformation. However, this partnership is now being challenged directly by a US policy determined to offer an alternative, framing the choice not just as a business decision, but as a matter of national and regional security. The United States has brought its domestic policy of confronting Huawei to Latin America's doorstep, specifically to Panama. Known as the Rip and Replace policy, this initiative involves the US government providing financial assistance to remove telecommunications equipment deemed a national security threat, namely from Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE, and replace it with technology from what it considers trusted vendors. In a landmark move, the US announced it would spend $8 million to fund the replacement of Huawei gear at 13 different sites across Panama. This marks the first time the Rip and Replace program has been implemented in Latin America, signaling a significant escalation of US efforts to counter China's technological influence in its strategic backyard. This action did not happen in a vacuum. It was preceded by a series of high-level diplomatic visits from Washington. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited in February 2025, followed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in April. These visits appear to have laid the groundwork for a major policy shift. Shortly after Secretary Rubio's trip, Panama made the historic decision to withdraw from China's Belt and Road Initiative, a massive global infrastructure project. This was a clear pivot away from Beijing and toward Washington. The pressure continued to mount, culminating in the Rip and Replace announcement, which directly targets the technological infrastructure that underpins modern economies and governments. The US justification for this policy centers entirely on security. Officials in Washington have long argued that Chinese law could compel companies like Huawei to share sensitive data with Beijing's intelligence agencies. They fear that backdoors could be built into the hardware and software, allowing for unauthorized surveillance or even the shutdown of essential services during a conflict. While a 2024 US report found no definitive evidence of such backdoors in Huawei's Latin American networks, it did raise concerns about other practices like price dumping to undercut competitors. For the US, the potential risk is too great to ignore, especially in a country as strategically vital as Panama. The pressure campaign has also extended beyond just replacing existing equipment. It aims to block future deals. Following the U.S. diplomatic push, the mayor of Panama City declared that the municipality would not award contracts for its upcoming 5G network tender to companies from countries that have not signed the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. China is not a signatory to this treaty. This move effectively bars Huawei from participating in the race to build Panama's next-generation mobile network, ensuring that the country's future digital infrastructure will be built with technology from Western-aligned nations, a major strategic victory for the United States. Panama's leadership has found itself in a delicate and somewhat awkward position, caught between two global superpowers. While the Panamanian government appears to be aligning with Washington's strategic interests, the public handling of the rip and replace announcement caused friction. Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino openly expressed his displeasure, not with the policy itself, but with how it was communicated. He publicly chided the U.S. Embassy for announcing the equipment replacement before his own government had the chance to do so. In a pointed statement, he requested that the embassy abstain from making public pronouncements, which only the Panamanian government can make, revealing the sensitivities of appearing to cede sovereignty. This reaction highlights the tightrope Panamanian leaders must walk. On one hand, they are cooperating with a key ally on a matter the U.S. deems critical to national security. On the other hand, they must maintain the appearance of independence and control over their own national affairs. President Mulino's statement was a clear attempt to assert Panamanian authority and manage public perception. It signals to his citizens and to the world that while Panama may be shifting its alliances, it is doing so on its own terms. The incident underscores the complex diplomatic maneuvering required when navigating the intense rivalry between the US and China. China, for its part, has responded with measured but firm disapproval. The Chinese ambassador to Panama, Xu Shuiwan, acknowledged that a country has the right to update its own facilities and infrastructure. However, she condemned the framing of this decision as a move against China. It is not acceptable to turn it into political propaganda against China, she stated, accusing the US of politicizing what should be a technical and commercial matter. Beijing's official stance is that its companies operate according to local laws and that US security concerns are baseless pretexts designed to stifle Chinese competition and maintain American technological dominance. Huawei has also been caught in the crossfire. A major regional cybersecurity center that the company had announced with great fanfare in May 2024, planned for construction in Panama, has now been put on hold indefinitely. The stalled project is a tangible casualty of the shifting political winds. It symbolizes the broader challenge Huawei now faces in Panama and other countries aligning with the US. What was once a welcoming environment for the Chinese tech giant has become uncertain and, in some respects, hostile. The company's future plans for expansion in the country are now under a significant cloud of doubt, directly impacted by geopolitical forces far beyond its control. The situation in Panama is not an isolated event. It is a reflection of a wider trend that is dividing Central America. Other nations in the region are also being forced to choose sides in the US-China tech rivalry. Costa Rica, for instance, took a similar path to Panama even earlier. In August 2023, it effectively blocked Huawei from its 5G auctions by requiring bidders to be from countries that adhere to the Budapest Convention. More recently, in Guatemala, a government contract for a cyber recovery vault that had been awarded to Huawei was abruptly annulled in February 2025, just days after a visit from Secretary Rubio, demonstrating the direct impact of US diplomatic engagement. However, not every country is falling in line with Washington's agenda. In fact, some are deliberately deepening their ties with Huawei, creating a clear geopolitical fault line across the isthmus. Honduras's state-owned telecommunications company is reportedly engaged in a secretive alliance with Huawei to bolster its networks. Meanwhile, El Salvador and Nicaragua have been actively courting the Chinese firm. Both countries held strategic meetings with Huawei executives in the spring of 2025, and Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega personally met with company representatives in April, signaling a clear intent to continue and even expand their partnership with the Chinese tech provider. For the people of Panama, these high-stakes geopolitical decisions will have real-world consequences. On one hand, aligning with the US and adopting Western technology could lead to more secure networks, increased foreign investment from the US and its allies, and stronger diplomatic ties with Washington. However, It could also mean higher costs for telecommunication services, as Huawei's equipment is often more affordable. There is also the risk of slower technological rollout, as replacing established infrastructure is a complex and time-consuming process that could delay the expansion of services like 5G to the entire population. Ultimately, the US-Huawei conflict in Panama is about more than just routers and cell towers. It's about the future of the internet and global connectivity. The big question is whether the digital world will remain a single, interconnected global network or splinter into separate spheres of influence, one led by the US and another by China. The choices being made today in Panama and across Central America are shaping the answer to that question. For ordinary citizens, the outcome will determine the cost, accessibility, and security of the digital tools they rely on every day, making this technological tug-of-war a matter of profound importance for the entire region.